Are you ready to scale and outsource your business?
Okay, let's go.
Welcome to the Outsourcing and Scaling Show. I'm your host, Nathan Hirsch, a show where we talk about everything Amazon, Shopify, e-commerce, and digital marketing. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Outsourcing and Scaling Show. Today, my guest is Trevor Turnbull. How are you, Trevor?
I'm good. How are you doing, Nathan? Good to be on your show here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Trevor is the CEO of LinkedIn to Leads and the founder of transformative expert selling programs, where he has empowered thousands of solo entrepreneurs to connect with their most valuable prospects and build a thriving business and life. He has served over 26,000 people with his proven client acquisition system and has shared his story and methods in numerous media publications, including Forbes, Entrepreneur, Time, Money, and Business Insider, about how to go from stressed, frustrated, and overworked to confident, empowered, and balanced in 90 days or less, which definitely relates to me because I'm a workaholic, and we all know how stress kind of falls into that. But before we talk about all of that, which we will, let's take a gigantic step back. Talk to me about what you were like growing up. Were you a rebel? Were you a straight A student? Did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
You know what? I don't think I really caught the entrepreneurial bug until university. Like, I don't have a story of, selling lemonade on the side of the road or anything like that. But, I honestly, I can define myself as an athlete growing up. Like, I was a hockey player. I'm from Canada. I live in Vancouver right now, but I'm from like the middle of Canada in Saskatchewan, which there's really only one thing to do when it's freezing cold out all winter, and that's play hockey. So, I was a hockey player for years and years. And by the time I dove into my business side of things, so I got a marketing degree and I took a few entrepreneurial classes, and that's where I kind of started to figure out that was something that I wanted to do. And specifically just in being able to present ideas and really, get involved in sales. So it just kind of naturally led to me starting my own business in 2006 with the encouragement of a friend who handed me the 4-Hour Work Week and the E-Myth books, all the usual required readings for new entrepreneurs. And yeah, just like many people I'm sure that are going to be watching this, I've stumbled my way through many, many things. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. And that's part of my mission now, is to really serve solopreneurs that were like me for many, many years, to kind of cut the learning curve a bit and not work so darn hard. Like you already alluded to it, we're workaholics by nature. We want to work hard as entrepreneurs, but there's smarter ways to go about it. And that's what we do now, is serve people to help them with that.
Yeah. So how do you even begin to take someone, let's say you got a business owner, they're working 70, 80 hours a week. I'm assuming their personal life isn't where they want it to be. It's tough to balance both when you're working that much. What's normally like your starting point to get them to that point where they can start transitioning to a better and smarter work week?
If I'm being honest, usually it's a mindset shift. So it has nothing to do with systems and processes and tools and everything else. It has to do with how you see being an entrepreneur and how you can think differently so that you don't become a micromanaging, stressed out, I have to do everything or else it's never going to get done right kind of a person, because it's just not true, especially in today's world. And obviously, everybody that's watching this knows your business and what you guys do, but I'm just a huge advocate for figuring out what you do best and doubling down on that. And then finding ways to get everything else off your plates as efficiently as possible. So, getting that mindset in the right space, which requires mentorship, it requires really looking at what you do for a living and how you can, see how to do it differently. Sometimes, a lot of the people that we serve, as an example, are older. I'll be quite honest. They're baby boomers in many cases. So they've come from a career of say 20, 30 years in the corporate world. And now they're about to retire, or they've got bitten with the entrepreneurial bug and they say, I'm going to go and do this myself. But they don't know how to, market themselves. They don't know how to sell what they do. And they certainly don't know how to do all the technical aspects. So instead of trying to teach them how to build websites and landing pages and set up booking tools and use Zoom and all these different tools, we teach them how to learn the basics of understanding how to use these things, but then have other people leverage to do a lot of the work for them.
So are you of the mentality that sales is king? I know you founded expert selling programs. Is it all about the sales and everything else you can hire, or is that not really, am I going down the wrong path there?
No, for sure. Like the reason why we came up with the term and the name of our program as expert selling is, I believe honestly, every single person is a salesperson, whether they want to believe it or not, especially if you're a solopreneur and you're in charge of your revenue, you are the salesperson until you start to outsource that too.
Right.
So shifting the mindset again about what sales actually means, where it doesn't have to be this dirty word where you're trying to trick people or get them to convert based on some limited time offer or something, but instead really find good alignment towards serving a pain point that a potential client has is critical. So our programs are not 100% all about sales process and overcoming objections and closing on the phone and that type of thing. But it is about how you can position yourself to really bring the most valuable prospects to your door, have them fully educated on exactly what you do, how you can serve them, and nail down those pain points that they have and what solutions you have to offer, so that the sales process becomes more of an enrollment conversation of like, here's what you need, here's what I can do for you, and we can fill that gap right there. So yeah, we spent a lot of time on sales just because it's a necessity in order to actually have a thriving business. But we also want to take the stigma away of it being a bad thing, because it's really not. It's critical to your success.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people get in the mentality of not wanting to be the used car salesman, so they don't do sales, or maybe they are doing sales, but they're doing it in a way that most people don't approve. And I guess my next question is, where do you see the most people going wrong when it comes to sales, opposed to besides just not doing it at all?
Well, in the sales process that we teach, a lot of times it's about active listening skills. We can talk about this from a business perspective as well as a relationship perspective. I know you just got engaged, so you know all about this too. But
right.
In relationships, being able to actually actively listen to what's being said and articulate it back, so like paraphrasing back to that person so that they know that they've been understood and heard, is a critical component to a sales process, right? So we spend a lot of time talking about that and also just practicing it too. We do a lot of role playing in our group calls and whatnot when we're talking about sales process. And that's a key piece to actually making it work for anybody that's going to be working for themselves.
Completely agree. Let's shift the focus a little bit. You talked a lot about outsourcing and taking tasks off your plate. Do you remember who your first hire was and how that went?
Oh man, it's been a lot of years now. I've been doing this since 2006 or so, actually probably earlier than that. But the first time I hired a VA probably would have been a web developer back in like 2010 or so. So it's been almost 10 years ago. And it was a disaster, mostly because, the platforms and the marketplaces and the ability to like communicate and pay and all these different things just weren't up to speed back then. But I think it opened my eyes though to the possibilities. And, I've spent a lot of time in the last 10 years educating myself, not only on how to go and find good talent, but how to screen them, train them, manage them, know when to get rid of them sometimes too, which can be very stressful for people as well, to know kind of when to cut the cord when things aren't working out. And, so I can tell, I don't know exactly what the first hire was, but I can tell you it wasn't pretty. I learned the hard way.
Any particular horror story that stands out from your 10 plus years of hiring?
Well, we've had experiences along the way. Whenever you're dealing with like web development, you're sometimes, all the time dealing with sensitive information of servers and login information for sites. And I had some bad experiences in the past, and this was years and years ago. And again, it happened, like I get to take full responsibility for why it happened, where, one of my sites basically got hijacked and taken over. That's not to scare anybody away from that right now. But it was really because I didn't do a good vetting process. I was really just honestly kind of desperate for somebody to help me. And before I knew it, things were just kind of taken over, and we were in a situation where I couldn't get access to my own site. But, there's so many tools to be able to mitigate the risks and everything that are associated with that. And truth be told too, with the proper vetting process, you end up hiring some pretty amazing people. That's the one thing that I've learned over the years, is that I've stopped thinking about outsourcing as just this like tool for my business, but instead, like, these are real people that are highly skilled, that are passionate about what they do, that have families on the other end of the computer, on the Slack channels and the Facebook groups and everything else. And when you start treating them like real people, they actually show up and they perform for you because they want to do a good job. They want to get a good wage, So yeah, it's been an interesting experience over the years, and it seems like it's getting easier and easier. And that's obviously why a company like yours has popped up, as well as, other ways for people to be able to go and hire quality people from around the world.
Absolutely. And I was talking to a client earlier today who, for years we've had the same issue where just the way she talks to people in emails via Skype, that just makes no one want to work for her. And she just hasn't been able to grasp that nothing else matters. Your SOP doesn't matter. What your training is, whatever. If you can't get people to actually want to work with you and talk to them like they're human beings, and that's got to be step one. What do you look for when you're hiring someone? Let's say you have a job, you have an opening, you're posting on FreeUp, you're posting wherever, and you're meeting with people. What traits or what is your vetting process like?
Well, the biggest things are probably open communication. So like, making sure that there's timely communication happening. The one thing with, especially with hiring people in the Philippines, is that I've experienced there's shutdowns of internets. Like, they have crazy storms over there, and just unsecure internet services and stuff. Sometimes that they just go down. And when I first started doing this, I always wondered, like, is this real? Like, are they actually shut down for 4 days here? And then even also just around religious holidays and that type of thing too. That was an area that I just didn't understand when I first started doing this work. And once I understood kind of the rules and the engagements and kind of how people structure their work weeks and months and years around those kind of things, I just started to adapt to it and allow it to be a part of my process too. So anyways, going back to what you were saying though, good communication, attention to detail right off the start is critical. And then also just, our onboarding process is more than just like, here's your SOP, you go do this job. It's more about, here's our vision, this is what we're creating, and you're going to be a part of that, right? Because we want them to feel invested in what we're actually doing, not just working a job. Even if it is just a means to an end, I want people to be a part of a team that are working to something greater. And it just inspires people a lot more to work harder, to feel like they're actually a part of something as well.
Yeah, I love it. I always tell people the beginning of your SOP, before you dive into A, B, C, D, tell them about your business, tell them about your goals, tell them about what didn't work with the past hires, tell them about what you're looking forward to doing with them in the future. Like, all that stuff is important. No one just wants to be handed something, get it done, and then just be handed the next project without any idea how it impacts. You talked a little bit about outsourcing sales, and I think that's where a lot of people struggle a lot. And I think a lot of people, they try to outsource it too early, or even on the flip side, too late. What does that look like to you? If someone wants to outsource their sales process, where should they be, and what are the steps to do that?
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on which part of the sales process we're talking about. Like, we have, multiple steps to a sales process. That's not just the phone call. But rather, how we're qualifying people before they get on calls, how we're keeping track of our data inside of our CRM. All those things can be outsourced, and we do outsource pieces of them, as far as like the building of a sales pipeline and communications. Like, we do a lot of work with LinkedIn. So we use VAs for LinkedIn, for example, and we can see that if we connect with somebody today, knowing that our sales cycle might be 6-9 months, that those VAs can actually help us greatly in educating and moving the sales process along. As far as like actively having a virtual assistant doing calls, we haven't gone down that path yet. I feel like it's something that you have to keep internal and do yourself, which is why we talked about, like getting good at selling, even if you don't think you're a salesperson. But what we've started to do recently is put a 2-step call process together, where the first step is really just 3 questions that ask that person whether, basically to try and find out if we're a fit or not. Because if we're not, we'll point them in a different direction. If we are, then we'll get on a more detailed strategy call with somebody like myself or a salesperson on our team that can, dive a little deeper into exactly how we can serve them best, not just can we serve them or not. So we've started to outsource that, where I have a guy in Indonesia who takes all of our first calls with prospects, just to figure out whether or not it's a fit. Because if it's not, we don't want to waste either person's time. So it's working out good so far, and we're going to see how we can further expand on it in the future here too.
You seem like someone that does a little bit of trial and error. You like to try different things, hire people for different spots. Is that accurate?
Yeah, anytime we're doing anything in our business, we're always documenting, and we're seeing where we can procedurize something with either software or a human being. And if we can, we're just constantly trying to figure out how to fit those pieces in. And it all comes down to having good procedures and good communication and standards for how all that works. So we use a combination of, Trello and Slack, Monday.com for project management. All of those tools help us more efficiently be able to expand our business and grow our outsourced team for sure.
Love it. Let's talk a little bit more about the ideal prospects. I think this is where a lot of business owners go wrong as well. They try to cater to everyone. They don't do a good job of vetting clients to make sure it's the right fit for both sides. Where do you see people go wrong, and what advice do you have for the people listening?
Yeah, well, I've got a methodology that I call the solo method, and there's 3 pieces to it. It's like a Venn diagram. One of them is called the solo market. The other one's the solo model, and then the solo funnel. So the solo market is all about the audience. And my advocacy is that you choose one audience and you really dial it in. You can see a book in the background there, the one thing. Actually, it's not we're not a certified, whatever for that book or what those guys do, but a lot of what they speak about it rings true with how we teach as well. So dialing in that one audience really means, how can you clearly articulate who you serve, how you serve them, why they should trust you, how they can find out more information, knowing that when you get granular, it becomes very obvious for the other person, the prospect, to go, ooh, that's me. But it also becomes kind of polarizing in the sense that if you're used to having multiple different clients in a variety of industries and, all that kind of stuff, that you feel this like internal angst of like, but I can help everybody in the world.
Right.
Sure you can. But, in today's age, especially with what we're dealing with digital marketing and just, how many people are becoming coaches and consultants out there, if you don't find a way to differentiate yourself and become a true expert at one thing for one audience with one offer, with one campaign type to be able to convert that audience, you end up kind of getting bunched into that sea of fish, right? You don't become that big fish in the small pond, as they say. So, getting clear on that avatar, and part of that process comes down to understanding your own personal values, the kind of people that you want to work with, as well as your mission and your vision. All these things kind of tie into how you can define that customer avatar, and then create marketing materials, landing pages, email outreach, social content, advertising, everything that really speaks to that one audience. So, there's a lot of pieces to it, but I just honestly believe it's a critical component to anybody that wants to be successful nowadays as an online entrepreneur or an offline entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it, just somebody that is a solopreneur running their own business. You got to get dialed in.
I love it. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a tool that I use a lot. I'm sure I'm not maximizing to its full potential. I bet a lot of listeners are not either. It sounds like you've kind of figured out how to start your lead process in LinkedIn. Anything that you can share about that and what's worked for you?
Yeah, sure. So I've been doing LinkedIn training now for almost 10 years. We've had, almost 26,000 or over 26,000 people go through our trainings with different products that we've sold over the years. And, LinkedIn at its core is really just a big database of business professionals, right? That are willing to fill in their information about who they are, where they're located, what industry they work in, what their job title is. So learning how to leverage that tool in an authentic way where it's not about automated spammy bots marketing, but instead it's about building authentic relationships with your perfect clients. Again, when you dial into that audience, you can actually do active outreach on LinkedIn to get connected, And, LinkedIn is not the sales tool. LinkedIn is just the source. It's the opportunity to go and find the right people. It's all the pieces in behind, like your campaigns, your funnel that you might create, the way you communicate with them through other sources that is critical to the success. But at its simplest, with LinkedIn, what I advocate for is to get connected first degree with those prospects, and then focus on serving them with value as well as collecting information. So we talk about this concept about selling value. So you are selling value in the form of content, blog posts, videos, podcasts like this. You're serving the community, your audience that way. Where they can serve you in selling value is giving you their time and giving you data, giving you insights into what's really going on with their business, right? So think of LinkedIn that way, as basically like a market research tool, an opportunity to expand your network, to get referrals. It's not a sales tool. The sales process happens outside of LinkedIn. A lot of times people make that mistake and they go too hard using LinkedIn as a means to sell, and it just doesn't work. It usually turns people off more than anything.
I think we've all been spammed by people on LinkedIn. Trevor, this has been great. What did I miss? Anything else that you want to share with the audience?
Well, I think more than anything, like when we connected, I can't even remember exactly how we connected right now, but it's funny how these things happen. Like, we've been doing outsourcing now for years, but it's really honestly been within the last year where we've started to dial in the process of finding, screening, hiring, training, managing, firing, rehiring, really dialing all that in. And one of the frustrations that I know a lot of people have expressed to me, and I've even expressed it myself, is just having a place to turn to pre-vet your candidates, right? And I know this is what you guys do, and I know we're going to even talk about integrating your service into our program too, because when we do outreach on LinkedIn, for example, and we're asking our ideal clients, like, where are you struggling right now? They'll tell us technology. Oh, I need a copywriter. Oh, I need a designer. Oh, I need a developer. All these things. And for the longest time, I thought, okay, well, let's go teach people how to do that. But the truth is most people don't want to learn it. They just don't, but they need to understand it well enough to be able to hire somebody to train that person to have them take it over. So I guess the last thing I'd leave people with is that, if you're watching this, obviously you're exploring the idea of outsourcing right now. And I want you to know that it is probably the most liberating thing that you can do in your business. It's like a main focal point for what we do in our program. And it's why I was super excited to get connected with you, because I know you guys have, dialed in that process of vetting, screening, hiring, training, managing to an even greater level than we have. So I'm super excited to start integrating what you guys have into our program as well.
Same here. And we're looking forward to working with you as well. Where can people find out more about you, and what are you most excited about in 2019?
Yeah, well, you can go to expertselling.com. So we are launching our online program that's going to include mentoring and coaching as well as access to all these different databases of pre-vetted freelancers and tools that we use in our business. And, you'll find all the information that you need on that page. And then, of course, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's what this is all about, right? And if you do, let me know that you saw me on this podcast. It's always great to see some insight as to where people are coming from, so that I have some context as to what you might need help with the most as well. So I'm happy to connect with anybody. Just search for me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thanks, Trevor. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Did you enjoy this content? If so, click like, leave us a comment, and subscribe to our channel so we can continue bringing you great content all about hiring.